Lost in the city, another life. Drinking sake, feeling right. Got faded in Japan, what a sight.
Whoa!
Whoa! Welcome to yet another episode of Got Faded Japan, and I am Johnny.
And I'm Matty B.
And today I am Max. I'm here for one time, or maybe more.
Or maybe more.
Well, you don't know. You don't know. Sometimes they come back, which is also a good Stephen King novel. Yes, and this is episode number
244.
244, which is death to somebody else.
That's right.
To somebody else.
Half of somebody else is going to die. Because 4 means death, 4 means double death, and half of that means somebody else.
Yeah,
2
so-
is half of that. Right?
So it's not. Hopefully, it's not you. And if it is you, definitely support the show. Buy something, and then die. Tell a friend.
By one of the many services we do not offer.
What a customer service that is. Wow, my goodness.
I know. Our customer service is as bad as the show. Sorry.
Yeah, we respond to messages.
Yeah. We do reply to anybody that sends us an email. So.
We haven't replied to Kieran yet today, though. I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, he sent the email this morning and shit. I got it like 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, he's definitely a fan, a fader and stuff that sends us messages and shit all the time and stuff. Fucking fade on, fader. And, Got Faded Japan's about 2 dudes booze.
Japan in the news.
That's right. Actually, today, we're not going to do like the Japanese news because we have the Japanese news right here with all of our experience and all our knowledge. We're going to talk about the shit that's gone down in the past, present, and future in Japan.
Yeah, we have a very unique perspective on the show today.
That's right. Max, tell us about yourself.
My goodness, first of all, can I ask you a favor? Since
Yes.
we're on TV, can I ask you, run off the camera, run to my bag, open it up, and grab my book?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
I knew I forgot something.
I thought you were going to say
Thank
history.
God I remember my trousers. But I did bring my book. Yes.
Yeah.
This is my book. Now,
You got a book?
Yeah, no, he does, man.
You
This
got
is
a book. And it's
my book. My first one. It's called The Truth About Americans in English, or in Japanese, Americans in Nihon. Now, I came to Japan 41 years ago.
41 years ago.
41 years ago in the United States Marine Corps, and I was, I think you could say historian even back then, about World War II and what happened in the war and so forth. And one of the first things I thought is, someday there's going to be problems. Why? The truth of the war wasn't being discussed. It was hidden. And basically America was, okay, I'm from America. I was born in the United States Marine Corps. But America was basically, Japan, you're bad, and America's real wonderful, and this sort of thing. Well, we've all heard so many things from, especially in the neighboring country of Korea, how terrible Japan is. Well, where should I start?
Did this happen 44 years ago when you first arrived in Japan? Were
No.
the Koreans after that whole issue back then? Or, because I imagine for the Koreans, they were busy reassessing the situation on the world
With
map.
North Korean shit.
North Korea,
actually, I
the
did live in
Sakhalins.
South Korea. I did live in South Korea.
Oh, okay.
For about 6 months, about 38 years ago.
As a Marine?
After the Marine Corps, as a civilian. As a Marine, I can say this now. I mean, I'm not supposed to, but I first came to Japan. I was an administrative clerk in the Marine Corps in Iwakuni, in Yamaguchi Prefecture, just west of Hiroshima. And I was scouted by the United States Communist Party to be a spy.
You were scouted by the United States Communist Party?
Yes.
To be a spy for the commies.
For the communists.
Before we do it, we should all move over to the
No, we're all in frame, man. We're all in frame.
I'd like more to the right. I hate to ruin the story.
This is just after Vietnam. This is 1975. Saigon fell, and I was here. And I just missed Vietnam. And I was scouted by the communists because I learned Japanese quickly. And I was in administration. And they figured that I didn't have any top secret information that I could give out. I wasn't that clear to handle. But I did have a lot of good stuff about the organization, the 1st Marine Air Wing and so forth like that. And they knew I'd get in trouble for liking Japan and speaking Japanese. The Marine Corps is conservative, and it's conservative Americans in that way. So they scouted me. And the very next day I went to my captain, not the lieutenant. The lieutenant was an idiot. My captain was former private in the Marine Corps. He worked his way up, and he's a person I trusted. And I became a naval intelligence agent, because the Marine Corps does not have its own political intelligence organization. In the case of Marines, it's the Navy.
So you were okay. So you became a Navy intelligence agent.
Yes.
But then you were also approached by the communists at the same time.
No, the American communists.
The American communists approached me.
Yeah.
And I went to my superior, who took me to naval intelligence, and what they said was, would you work for us?
Oh, so you didn't work for the communists?
Of course not, no.
Ah, okay.
And, well, to put it bluntly, I mean, somebody's going to find out about that kind of thing. There were Red Marines who were doing their best to spy and do stuff.
Communist Marines? Red Marines?
Yes. But it gets found out. And when you're in the military, okay, there's American civilian law, but when you're in the military, there's also military law and military custom. And they have ways of messing you up if they really want to.
Like how?
They can make your life miserable.
By following around? By
No. You'll be on
toes?
duty 24 hours. You'll have all the nastiest jobs to do.
KP?
And worse than that. And
No R&R.
No R&R, and they can find ways to really make you feel bad.
Like you're about to go to Bangkok for shore leave, but then they pull you back
sure.
2 minutes before departure.
Yeah,
They send you to North Korea.
Um,
Oh no!
no, back then, the threat was either Thule, Greenland, or Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. You know, this is, of course, if you were in Vietnam, sure, send me there. I would get out of Vietnam. But if you were in a place like Iwakuni, Japan, you wouldn't want to go to Greenland or Diego Garcia. If you don't know Diego Garcia,
No, I don't.
it's an island. It's still a base. It's a U.S. base in the Indian Ocean that is like 2,000 miles from anywhere. It's just isolated. Okay, so the history problem and the Koreans. After I followed American spy networks into South Korea, American Communist Party spy networks into Communist Korea, because communists could not enter Korea at that time. South Korean government was Kim Dae-jung. Park Chung-hee. Park Chung-hee, the father of the President Park Geun-hye. He was president at the time, and he's a former Imperial Japanese Army officer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I think I read that on your blog. You posted a picture, I think.
That's right.
Yes.
So he had his behind-the-scenes popularity with Japan, and Koreans at the time, there was rivalry with Japan, of course, and they would say this originated in Korea and that originated in Korea, and Japanese copied us and this kind of thing. And at the time, Korea had very little contact with the outside world. And after I quit the Marine Corps, I lived in Korea 6 months. And I hoped that Koreans would someday kind of grow up, especially with contact.
How would you say grow up? Why do you mean grow
Mature.
up in which ways? Like,
Mature.
like for example, like
Okay,
what was
contact-
immature, and then what would be the maturity that would develop?
They
out
had
of
a
that?
tremendous egoism complex, which still exists today. of
heat
course.
wisdom,
Egoism.
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 Oh, okay. So
Egoism. How many? I've only just sipped this thing. My
no,
Lord.
man.
Dude, I'm almost done with mine.
my
A
ears
tremendous
are fucked up.
egoism and a tremendous inferiority complex. But first, the egoism comes out. And Korea is the center of the world. Korea is the center of everything. And I really got that idea 38 years ago. And I hope that contact with the rest of the world, they would gradually calm down. They got a lot worse. I'm very sorry. They got a lot worse.
They became more egocentric.
Yes.
Or
And
nationalistic.
my first book now, how I published this book, I was noticed by a publisher. And why? Somebody put one of my blog entries on YouTube. This was about a year and a half ago.
Well, how do they put a blog entry on YouTube?
They took it and put it on YouTube, and they narrated it.
Read it? Yeah.
Was it a
They had-
Japanese person?
It was a Japanese person who narrated it, but they have it in English. It's below that.
Because your book and your blog is bilingual. It's in
Right,
Japanese.
right.
And by paragraph, it's English, Japanese, or
Right.
Japanese, English.
They just put the and had someone read the Japanese, and they pretty well. They did a good job.
Okay.
Now, in that blog entry, there was an incident that happened to me 38 years ago in Korea, which really educated me about Koreans. And I was teaching English in Korea, and I had a lot of Korean friends and so forth. And I was out with my Korean friends, we're drinking a few beers and soju, and soju is, be careful with Korean soju. We were drinking, and they asked me a question. Which country had the worst experience in World War II? And I thought, my Lord, that's a
Whoa.
funny question.
That is kind of weird. Out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
Wait, this is 1970?
1978, 79, around there.
78, 78. Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while. And, well, just asked me, and I said, well, Poland. And this is just off the top of the head. And I have studied World War II history as much as I possibly could. And Poland invaded by both Germany and Russia.
Yeah.
Occupied by Germany for, what, 5.5 years, something like that.
Something like that.
2 revolts inside Poland in that time, 1943 Jewish revolt in the Warsaw Ghetto, 1944 Polish Home Army revolt in Warsaw. Besides that guerrilla activity and through the country, when the Russians advanced west, Germany fought tooth and nail to keep the Russians back, and all in all, Poland lost a quarter of its population.
It got fucked.
Right. So I said, Poland. And the Koreans got mad at me, and they said, no, Korea had it the worst. I said, pardon me?
Worse than China?
Yes, they said because
China
China got 10 million people.
They said Japan occupied Korea. We had the worst in Korea. And I said, but nothing happened.
Yeah, you were occupied, but you weren't fucked.
Well,
you weren't fucked as much as other people.
Well, the truth is,
maybe, I don't know.
The truth is,
you can just say that.
And actually in Japan, we don't say occupied, we say annexed.
Annexed. Like Texas.
Answers, yeah.
Annexed, and actually, if you really study the history, and if you do go through it, that was the best time in Korean history, after all, was the Japanese annexation.
Yeah, I read this on your blog. Why do you say that?
Well, for one, it created conditions where the average Korean could rise. What Americans say is upward mobility.
Right.
Before that, Koreans were serfs, period. And you couldn't change your status and so forth. And well, Japan was too, in a sense. If we look at the Edo era in Japan, we had the 4 classes. But gradually, the merchant class was much more powerful than the samurai class. And Japan had quite a lively art scene and so forth, which Korea never had. Korea was a very static society, and anyone who stood out was simply killed. Period. And Japan came in, and Japan forbid some more nasty Korean habits, like there's a Korean dance that's been revived.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? What is it?
I forget the proper name, but it humiliates people with physical handicaps.
Okay, no, that's not the one I was thinking.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking?
Oh, no, I have a friend that's Korean that does the Korean like dance where they do the skip, they do the jump, and it looks like a rabbit that's been shot.
Okay, and does it have a meaning or?
Well, no, maybe a rabbit that looks like a shot. Maybe it is like maybe they are making fun of like handicapped people.
But hold on, why would they make a dance that humiliates handicapped people? But what does the dance entail? What do they do to humiliate it?
Walking around, acting like a person who has physical deformity.
They're basically breakdancing.
Like, what is that joke? Trying to bite your elbow? Yeah.
Something like this. Right.
Well,
Well, things like that Japan forbade, and actually Japan made quite a comprehensive legal system. Japan built schools. Japan revived the Hangul alphabet, even despite what Koreans say that Japan forbade. No. Japan revived it.
Why was it banned?
It was never banned, but the ruling class, the Yangban is a Korean word meaning aristocrats. The Yangban just let it decay. And the Yangban were very much into Chinese classics. Chinese classics is the center of all knowledge. The Korean writing is low class, very hierarchical society.
It is a hierarchical. It's true to this day that Korea is very much a hierarchical, more so than Japan. And Japan's very hierarchical. The old Joge Kanke, right?
When you come from, okay, I've been here 41 years, and I'm at my spot. Let's put it that way. But I suppose coming from America the first time, it's like, wow. Now, of course, Korea is a lot more wow. And it just is. But as far as the Korean claims for World War II and all the abuses Japan did, they have no right. They simply don't.
Why, man? They abandoned like 30,000 or 40,000 people on the Isle of Sakhalin, and you have like the Zainichis and the Chongrong, the North Korean faction of Koreans inside of Japan.
Japan was thrown off the island, so Japan couldn't abandon. Japan was simply defeated militarily.
But
But they left them. They annexed them and then they just left them.
Yeah, but didn't Japan like kidnap like a shit ton of like Korean people and stuff and use them as slaves, like slave labor?
No, they were recruited.
They recruited, but didn't like wasn't there a massacre in fucking, what was it, the Komazawa Park, Komazawa Koen?
No.
There wasn't?
No.
Okay, all right.
There was a set of riots in 1919. The Koreans say 7,000 were killed. The Japanese say 500.
Okay, and that's the riots happened in Japan.
Japanese
in Korea.
historical
in
documents have always been a bit iffy because they tend to get burned when they're not favorable towards Japan.
Okay, but even if there's event happened, there'll be other documents. There'll be other things would come out. And what people say about the comfort woman issue, that the Japanese army went through villages and just grabbed people off the streets, it never ever happened. Never.
In Korea or in China?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Everywhere.
So there's no comfort women. That didn't happen.
They were comfort women. They were prostitutes.
Yeah.
There were always enough volunteers.
There's never enough volunteers.
There always were.
There always were.
There always were.
But what about like the rape in Nanjing?
All right, rape of Nanjing. Now, we're going to bring this up, and I do think something happened.
For anybody that doesn't know, that's a completely different country. That's China, not Korea. So that we're going to a different place.
And
Thanks, dude.
rape of Nanjing, what happened there is a lot of people were killed and raped. It was a battlefield. This is what's different. This is what I call heat of battle. You can't call this a crime. Why? People do things in war that they wouldn't do normally. They do.
So
and
just like firebombing Tokyo?
No, that's different.
But it's a heat
That was
thing.
political.
That's
we're
That
in
was-
a battle, we're in the heat.
No.
Why not? What's the difference?
Okay. What happened in Nanjing happened when the Japanese army was ordered into Nanjing and people got killed and people got raped. I'm sure this did happen. What happened afterwards was General Matsu Iwane, totally disciplined his force. He had 17 policemen. This is the truth. This is in a book called Soldiers of the Sun by, I believe it's Marion Harris. Only 17 military policemen to control 30,000 troops. Afterwards, he was really upset that it happened. So he disciplined his troops. You can't call that a crime.
But what about the denying that it never actually
Because
happened?
people get sensitive.
But like,
All right.
It's kind of like slavery in America. People get sensitive.
But it happened. But a lot of Japanese politicians and the narrative that is now being issued forth
It didn't happen, right?
that it didn't happen. Maybe a couple people died, but
All right.
there's like kind of like a large denial.
The Chinese put out a huge number game on this and a lot of propaganda. I've heard a figure 300,000 put out a lot. I don't really think it's 300,000. How much? I don't know.
There's a
Something
lot
did
of
happen.
Asians, man. They're like as opposed to Canadians. If you compare, like I'm from Canada or Swedish, like so the numbers. There's more of them. That's what I'm trying to say. There's more of them available to die as opposed to in Canada.
So what happened here is, whatever happened is the Japanese army did restore discipline. Now I must say next, they did a lot better than America.
What do you mean discipline?
America's never tried to restore discipline. American troops, and I'm saying as a former Marine,
they're agents of chaos, man.
they are. The American troops, I've really, in my blog, if you read my blog, I call baboons.
Baboons.
And I'm not trying to sell baboons. Now, a lot of people are going to get angry when they hear this. And remember, I'm a former U.S. Marine. I wore the uniform and I risked my life in the service of the United States of America. I could not go anywhere with fellow Marines. I just couldn't. Grabbing women all the time. And this is in peacetime in Japan.
Yeah, you shouldn't grab women, man.
You go to jail.
Shouldn't do it.
Trust me.
The thing is with Americans is,
They'll let you
whenever
grab them
things
if
would
they like
happen,
you, but just don't grab them.
Americans would cover it up, remove that GI from the area, and things like this. It's only in Japan, I remember a few incidents that were really bad that they turned over to Japanese authorities. Like the 1995 rape in Okinawa, there's three Marines and a corpsman.
Oh yeah. There's that one. But there's also a couple other rapes after that and stuff. And there's been a couple other like.
There's one guy. I was a Nigerian sailor actually in the United States Navy, who killed a woman in Yokosuka. It was filmed. It was on a security camera. That's how it was filmed. But until before, this has been a serious issue in Japan that Americans would be pulled out. for crimes. And Americans act badly in Japan, really. A lot of them do. A lot of them do. I have a lot of experience with that. With the military, I used to work for Gaijin. Gaijin is Japanese, it means foreigner. Talent office. We would put foreigners on TV. And Americans, I'm really sorry to say, behave badly. And
they're like Chinese people when they go abroad.
yes,
You know?
too many Americans behave badly.
Could you say that that's like everybody that travels abroad, like everybody that leaves their country in general, that leaves and shit, they get excited, they got money, they're in a different place, they're like, fuck it, let's have some fun and shit.
Well,
you know? I'm not, you know, my neighbors aren't here, my boss isn't here, nobody's ever gonna know. Facebook motherfuckers. But I mean,
I'll put it this way. I mean, when I lived in New York, I lived in New York for 2 years, 20 years ago, and I didn't live with Americans. I lived with Japanese. There were a lot of weird Japanese.
really?
Yeah, that
in
goes
New
with
York.
the crime.
But they didn't really do bad things to Americans in America. They did bad things to other Japanese
In America?
in America.
No shit.
Well, it's a group culture, man.
You don't, and my wife will say the same thing. She lived in England. You don't trust a Japanese you meet living overseas.
Even
really?
if it's not
Especially-
Soseki in 1902
Especially
in London.
if they say something about, I'll help you with some money affairs or something like this.
Oh, that's
Ooh,
sneaky. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no,
Stay
no,
away
no,
from
no.
those guys.
Yeah.
I stay away
Yeah.
from those guys in general.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's go back to the history thing.
Yeah, let's do that.
Now the Koreans were able and
Why are
willing
you
Japanese
so
soldiers.
anti-Korean?
I'm not anti-Korean.
Then what is it? Because I'm not hearing any pro-Korean.
All right. Well, I'll eventually try and get there.
Okay, sure. Well, then go on. Yeah.
And also, I want to tell you something, people on the net. The Koreans really messed up on something, and this is in my book.
Yeah.
About 8 years ago, we had what was called the Hanryu boom. In Japanese, this means the Korean wave boom. Suddenly, Japanese just really got interested in Korean culture.
Yeah.
Did.
We had middle-aged women, like in their 40s and 50s, studying Korean language,
Yeah.
Korean cuisine, traveling to South Korea.
There was a drama as well that was filmed
Many-
in Japan.
yeah,
Yeah,
many.
Korean drama that was
Yeah,
filmed
and
in
many,
Japan.
one started this, and many more came, and people fell in love with their stars. These Koreans would come over here, these Korean actors, and they would have a huge following. And all this screaming, yelling about the comfort woman issue, it just destroyed that, which is extreme stupidity. Why are Koreans so screaming about the comfort woman? Koreans have a tremendous complex about Japan. And they're, I think, jealous. And this is not new. This goes back hundreds of years. My first publisher, this is my first publisher. My second book is coming out soon.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You should
My-
come back on the show when it's published, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. My first publisher really, published a book called 1907. It's written by it's a man called Mr. Ladd, Ladd, professor who went to Yale, and he was invited by Ito Hirobumi, who was assassinated as the first Governor General of Korea. I'm not sure if it's the first one, excuse me. And he spent 2 months in Korea. He was amazed how the Koreans would scream about Japan. Now, okay, in 1580 something, Hideyoshi did invade Korea. The barons, the daimyo in Japanese means like baron, feudal lord.
Yeah.
Daimyo.
They eventually got tired of the whole idea and they kind of pulled the plug. The Korean Navy was valiant and smashed the Japanese Navy at the time. At that time, the Japanese Navy was simply a bunch of pirates and they just couldn't stand up. And he was almost killed for it. This is something Korean society has always been taken down by conspiracies. The one Korean general that could really fight the Japanese was killed because other Koreans got jealous.
Whoa, dude, that's fucked up.
And they're always driven by these intrigues and jealousies. And that was the one invasion of Korea really Japan did, and it lasted about 4 years, maybe 3 years, something like that. The Mongols and the Chinese have been much more nasty in dealing with Korea, yet the Koreans have all this hatred about Japan. Professor Ladd, this is back in 1907, which was 3 years before the Japanese annexation, was really surprised. And this has continued today.
But do you think it's because like the Chinese and the Mongols have like a negative reputation for being like marauders, whereas Japan sort of lauds itself as a nation of culture and peace.
And
really, so like you can kind of perceive, like you can naturally be of course the Mongols did that. That's what they were. Why did Japan do that when they are such a peaceful? Do you think there could be like a cultural perception, like where one culture tries to make itself in one image, then they act against it, and so that creates I don't know, like a negative, a reason to lash out against that culture, whereas if a culture is perceived as being negative, like the Mongol invasion and Red China, when they do something negative, like Mao did that, it's like, of course he did, why is Japan doing the same thing? They're horrible.
I'm coming to a certain theory. I'm coming to a certain theory of why Korea hates Japan, and I think it's Confucian.
Japan's pretty Confucian.
Not really, not compared to Korea.
No, not compared.
It's really heavy.
Yeah,
it's really heavy. And to the Korean mind, Korea is closer to China, which is the center of culture. Japan is an outside nation. So Japanese were a bunch of punks. I've been here 41 years.
When were they punks?
For all history. To the Korean mind. To the Korean mind. And inferiors to the Korean mind. The Korean mind. And for many, many, many years, of course, I was talking about the Yangban, and they'd let the Korean writing system decline and so forth. For them, written Chinese was paramount culture. And that's why Korea never developed kabuki. While Japanese developed kabuki, Koreans never developed an equivalent. And any such aspect of Korea that started up was destroyed.
Through jealousy within their own ranks?
Yes.
So is that why they don't have any that's why if you compare Japan to Korea, which you really shouldn't, but I mean if you do and stuff, I mean if you're like, well, okay, Japan has ninjas, samurais, manga, anime, Godzilla, all this shit, and you think about Korea, you're like
kimchi.
Yeah, exactly.
Which came from Japan.
Which came from Japan?
In the Hideyoshi invasion.
Now I'm floored. I've been quiet this whole time absorbing.
And this has been told to me by Koreans. This has been told to me by Koreans. This has been told to me by Koreans.
How did the Japanese...
We gotta stop this episode. We're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
This has been told to me by Koreans. Okay, this is my source on this. This is Korean hearsay. I don't have a definite...
Which you don't even trust. What is it though? I'm curious.
This is what I was told by a Korean friend.
I want to hear this story. What do you say?
Me too.
Actually, Korean food was pretty bland until the Japanese invaded in 15-something with Hideyoshi, and they introduced spices, and the Koreans went over with it and they made kimchi. They made it more spicy.
Well, doesn't that spice not originate from Korea itself? Isn't that like a import?
Well, of course, Japanese has spice, but Japanese food is a lot less spice than Korean in general, of course.
In general.
Actually,
if you go to Korea for 5 days, you're gonna notice that 95% of your food is red.
And you're gonna
I'll put this way. I love Korean food. I love Japanese food both. But when I go to Korea and I come back to Japan, I smell for about a week. That's just it.
Yeah,
it's in your system, and it's in there, and it's great stuff. But it's in your system. It's there.
The ishiyaki bibimbap, that's great stuff, man. The yukejan with a nice side of rice.
But maybe if you eat it every day, it's like not the same,
Yeah, it's true.
Korea is stuck in this jealousy routine, and now where they're going, I have a sense of where they're going, and it's weird. They envision a great Korean empire. They envision the North reuniting with the South.
Yes.
That's you got that. Okay.
Yeah,
and just yesterday, I was sending a Japanese TV clip from about 5-6 years ago, and when we don't have the Mr. Kim Jong Un and their daddy, Mr. Kim Jong Il, who was the great leader, the dear leader of the great leaders. The great leader was Kim Jong Il Sung, and the Grand Poobah, should I say? I mean, it's
the Grand Poobah.
That's what I like to say. I mean, the Korean propaganda is North Korean propaganda is just. It was a clip of showing education in South Korea, and it was really anti-Japanese.
Oh shit!
And yes. And there was a line in there how Japan invaded Korea. Never happened. I have seen rumors on that this is being taught now in South Korea, and Koreans going to America talking to Americans about the Korean War. No, that was when Japan invaded Korea. Why? Koreans are brothers, would never fight each other. Oh, come on. And Americans get upset because 50,000 Americans died to keep South Korea non-communist. And myself, in my service, after Vietnam, the American Communist Party's goal was to force U.S. troops, use U.S. anti-war movement, to force U.S. troops out of South Korea. I can say maybe I fought in the Second Korean War, which never happened. Thank you very much.
Right.
Not because I was a hero, because Americans got tired of protests and wars, and Vietnam was over, so the whole thing was over, and it never got to
in the Cold War, huh?
Right, and so the U.S. troops are still there, but I was a Cold Warrior, and I drink beer. Now,
hold on. Can I
yes.
ask you something? Like, one thing I wanted to go back to a little bit was, it's a bit of a change in topic, if that's okay.
Sure.
It was going back to like the fact that you used to do a lot of intelligence work for the Navy.
Yes.
Like, what did that entail?
Oh,
Like,
no.
like, because one person says intelligence agency, and then people start thinking, oh, CIA agent. People start extrapolating, and then they
All right.
they imagine you in some sort of fucking.
Okay, we got it.
You know what I mean?
How to be a spy, lesson 1.
How to be a so let's go back to the spy days just for a minute, because I know it's a long time ago, but I also know that it's pretty interesting
I had a 1-year career.
as a spy.
Yes.
All right.
And I'll put it this way, I was kind of passive, in a sense. And I didn't try to find things out.
That keeps you alive, actually, right?
It was a thought.
If you don't go anywhere, you're like, no, if I just stick around, nobody's going to shoot at me, right?
It was a thought, but I just was there, and I asked questions. I let people teach me things. And of course, since I was administrative clerk in the headquarters squadron of Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, and even though I didn't have any secret information, I had a lot of good stuff. And one of the things they were interested in me when I was first approached was the entire 1st Marine Air Wing was being reorganized after Vietnam. Now, okay, in Iwakuni we had the base and the Marine Corps Air Wing. Now, in our Marine Corps, actually the base, we only had 300 people, but we had 1,000 people to actually run the base. We borrowed 700 from the 1st Marine Corps Air Wing. So what happened was the entire Marine Corps Air Wing was reorganizing, and they would reassign troops, Marines from this unit to that unit, and you can get an idea how America was thinking to reestablish itself after Vietnam. You get an idea strategically. This is the first reason they went after me. And, I went to my captain of my office, not my lieutenant. Lieutenant was, Daddy was a colonel in California, and we messed with him, and he messed with us, and the sergeant would only let go so far. Captain was 45 years old at the time. He couldn't be gone beyond captain. He started as a private. You couldn't fool him. Couldn't fool him anything. But I trusted him, so I went to him, and he took me to Naval Intelligence. The Naval Intelligence said, "Well, will you work for us?" And from then on, anything I was asked to provide to the communists, sure, I would first go to my Navy people and say, "They want this, this, this." The Navy people would say, "Well, they can have that, and they can have that."
You were a double agent.
Yes.
For the commies. No, for the Navy.
The
for the Navy.
American commies and within the Navy. You're like a spy
then
within.
what would you tell
spies.
them? What would be okay to tell the commies, and what would not be okay to tell the commies?
Whatever my superiors in the Navy told me.
Which was?
Some things were okay, some things were not.
Like what?
Things. The reorganization of the 1st Marine Air Wing wasn't okay. That wasn't okay.
That wasn't okay.
And I remember one time I found something in the garbage which really got me about 10 times interrogated by my own side. I found a map. It was a map of South Korea with a plastic overlay. And the plastic overlay had certain circles and corridors, like air reception corridors written over certain bases with numbers. And this is thrown in the garbage from my office.
Why would they throw it in the garbage? Why would they shred it or destroy it?
And I found this is a cool map. This is a cool map.
Yeah.
And I thought this is a really neat map. I'd like to keep it myself. But this looks kind of sensitive. And I brought it to my Navy people. They freaked. They freaked.
This is where the UFO base is.
Yeah, right.
Where did you find this? Where did you find this? And we went through that time. And I did have lie detector tests. I had lie detector tests like once a month.
Did you pass?
Yes.
Of course.
One time I didn't. And
I had gas.
no. I had thought about talking to someone.
Meat sweat. Oh, wow.
I was in Kyoto on a trip, just messing around, and I almost said to 2 American businessmen I met that I almost said I was working for Naval Intel. That session lasted like 3-4 hours, and that was 10 questions, again and again and again and again.
The same 10 questions
Jesus.
for 3 or 4 hours?
Yes.
Well, that's how the cops do it here. If you get busted by the cops, they ask you the same question over and over again for an hour, then they get somebody else to do the same
You
thing.
get your testimony down. All right.
Afterwards, they believed me. They believed me. I didn't talk. I actually really didn't talk. No. But it was stuff I did, and I went into South Korea, introduced by the Reds, and today this surprises me. People who were in South Korea, Americans of high stature, missionaries, were helping them. Now, the Reds kind of said...
Who was helping who?
The missionaries.
The missionaries were helping the Reds.
Were helping the Reds. And
Yes.
this was back when you were...
In 1975.
1975.
Now, the Reds were saying they were Quakers, kind of. They kind of partnered with the Quakers.
Really? The
They really-
Quakers?
Yes,
As
they
a
did.
PR move, right? Because everyone loves Quakers.
Anti-Vietnam, anti-war, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, okay, let me say this. To my belief, the Vietnam War protesters were, I'd say, like 95%, 98% honest people who just did not like the war.
Yeah.
And the war was a huge, horrendous mistake.
Yeah.
Vietnam was.
We all agreed to that.
And, but there were some wolves among the sheep. They were there.
Yeah. In
And-
the clothing?
Yeah. And in Japan, outside every base in Japan, there was a network of American Communist spies. In Iwakuni, we had like 3 or 4. I was number 5. But I was really naval intel. So I did that for a year. That was
Wow.
As a double agent?
as a double agent.
Did you ever see any shit when you're doing that? Like, was there anything like where like, I don't know, like maybe your commander's like, listen, take this gun, it's washed, go in there and take this guy out. Was there anything like that, or?
I was one of the worst shots in the history of the Marine Corps.
Oh, good answer. That means maybe.
No, I never carried a weapon.
You never carried a weapon?
I never carried a weapon. Well, I'm in Japan. I work in administration. You know, of course, as a Marine, I had a weapon issued to me, which I never saw.
Right.
I trained in boot camp in the M16 rifle. I got to Japan. My issued weapon was an M14, which
M14, really?
I'd never worked with. And I was supposed to see it every 3 months and clean it, you know, and go down there. And the sergeant in charge of the armory says, hey, corporal, you know, I was not a private, a corporal. You've never ever touched an M14, have you? Well, no. You don't want to touch your rifle. I'll sign for you. You checked it.
That means it disappeared.
But no, it stayed in the armory. It stayed in the armory, and I never touched it. I never cleaned it. I never touched an M14. And we couldn't shoot it anyway because Iwakuni didn't have a actual rifle range.
It meant that it checked the box that you were able to use it.
Well, no,
you
you don't use it. You have to check your weapon like every 3 months or something like that.
Just to make sure it's like functional.
Right. And the sergeant said, "I'll make sure it's functional. You just." And well, the whole thing is just.
What
in
did
case,
you do with the communists over there?
I was just hanging around.
Like, how were they as a people? How were the communists generally?
You know,
like,
of course, as friends and so forth.
yeah, like because
And-
you had to get to know them
Yeah.
and socialize,
You make friends, sure.
make friends, like you might be against the cause, but how are they like on a day-to-day level?
Probably just like normal people, right?
They're normal people and actually highly intelligent, really intelligent people, basically.
Communists tend to be smart, man.
Yeah. Communist meetings now. I remember being in a communist meeting. And remember, this is a communist phrase: criticism, self-criticism. Where I was sitting through a Japanese Communist Party meeting. Americans were right along. This is Iwakuni. And these things are so boring. And they go on.
They go on.
And on. And on for hours. And I'm trying to stay awake and remember all this stuff that's going on because I can't take notes, obviously. And that was hard. That was really hard. This is different.
This is
It's
good.
a different one, yeah. That's a fucking
There's
awesome
a movie about that. The lodge that was assaulted in the 60s by the communists and the police. Asano.
Yeah.
There's 2 movies about it. One from the police perspective and one from the communist perspective. They do a lot of that criticism,
Right.
self-criticism.
Now, okay,
stuff.
and also I have to say here, and that some people are going to be watching me and what I'm saying, what I actually did.
Oh,
Whenever-
this isn't turned on. We had this for fun.
No, it's all.
just joking, Max. I'm sorry.
Whenever I
We'll
really
start
came up
in a
against
minute.
Japanese communists, and I did, or North Koreans, and I did, they were referred to the Japanese police. This is my mission. I was not to pursue it. I was not pursuing it, I was pursuing the Americans. I was strictly involved with the Americans, and whatever I met, Japanese, communists, and so forth, it was all given to the Japanese police, and I was told to back off, not to pursue.
Why were
that.
you pursuing Western communists in Japan?
Because they're ultra dangerous.
Well, they were also, of course, recruiting people on base and so forth. They had 3 missions. One is destroy the Japanese-American alliance. They were looking for proof of U.S. nuclear weapons on a base.
In Japan?
Yes.
Really? Do you think
communists?
that? Whoa. Do you think there are?
You're asking, do I think?
Do you think? No, not that there are. Or are there?
I am, okay, my thought is sure there were.
In Okinawa, right?
Everywhere.
Everywhere? There's a theory that Japan has so many nuclear
Put it this
bases because in case it needed to be used as a nuclear weapons manufacturing
I was gonna
hub,
get to that, yeah. That manufacturing
it could
just
just
launch.
be revved up as a place to produce a
Okay.
massive
Whoa.
amount of nuclear
I'll
weapons.
get there. Okay. Look, a U.S. submarine, attack submarine, comes into Yokosuka. They're based there. They're
Right.
home ported there. They have nuclear torpedoes. They do. I'm sure they do.
They do?
Now, that's one of the really sensitive things in the military. Those guys don't talk. And the communist Americans outside my base really want to get some of those guys. To my knowledge in Iwakuni, well, we were an air wing. We were based that catered to an air wing. And, just 1975, we had a lot of nuclear capable aircraft. I'm sure. Now, I don't know. And that was one of their missions, to find that. Second one, during the Vietnam War,